Hello, everybody, and welcome to an ECG Fireside Chat with super special guest, Ben Burns. Everybody, please
Hello.
give it up for Ben. Ben, thank you so much for joining us. I'm super excited to have you here. I'm sure everybody's super excited for you to be here. I've been getting messages all week long. They can't wait for this. So while we pile in, or we wait for chat to pile in, they're here already. Let's just start really quickly with I want to get this out of the way. There's a burning question that every single person who's ever been on any ECG Fireside Chat before has always asked, and everybody who's gone through it is dying to know. I'm going to put a little spin on it though, and I'm going to ask you, Ben, what is the best soup?
What is the best soup?
Yep.
Oh wow, that's like a difficult question because I feel like some people have different definitions of what soup is, right?
Do tell.
I mean, and also when does a soup become a broth? You know, like where? Because some soup can be surprisingly solid, right? I don't know. This is a difficult question, I think, because it depends what kind of mood you're in. But like, I generally find soup to be a little bit insubstantial on its own. So if I'm having soup, I want stuff in it. I want some beef in there. I want some vegetables in there. Maybe some dumplings. Maybe I get some buttered bread as well and dip that in. So I think the best kind of soup is the one that you put the most shit in, basically. Unless you're ill, then that's the opposite of what you want. What you want is some nice thin chicken soup. But yeah, I'll tell you what, I do have an answer for this. It's called Scotch broth. It's amazing. Have you ever had Scotch broth?
I have not.
It's unsurprisingly a Scottish dish, but yeah, it is basically just like meat and veg soup, and everything that you've got thrown in there. Check it out. It comes in tins if you want to try it. Scotch broth. Scotch
broth. Everybody, you heard it here first. All right, so let's see. We've got a lot of questions to go through. So I genuinely want us to get into the kind of into Clocktower mode, because I know people have a ton of Clocktower questions. In fact, I've been given some very specific scenarios that people want to know and they want to hear the answer from you. But I'm going to start going through the questions as they come in from chat because they're here live with us. So I believe, well, I'm going to ask you this question even though it wasn't really asked. So chat said whiskey, and then I see the chat said Scotch broth is just whiskey.
Yes, I'm currently enjoying a Scotch broth of my own right now. 18 years aged Glenfiddich. Yeah, it is 11:30 on a Friday night in the UK, so you know I'm not just some crazy alky. Well, I am, but you know you wouldn't know it. Is what I'm getting at.
So along those lines, what is your favorite whiskey? Just in case, I don't know, you were gonna come visit somebody's local haunt and they decided, hey, Ben's going to be in town, I want to get him a bottle of, what would that be?
Oh, that's a much easier question to answer. I like single malts. I'm a big fan of Jameson's. I usually default to Jameson's. That's like my favorite of all the regular over-the-counter whiskies. But they do this in Wales. They do this absolutely beautiful, like really smooth whiskey called Pandemonium, and that's up there as well, I think. But yeah, if it's like regular whiskeys, Jameson's, love it because it goes with everything. You can drink it straight. You can drink it with a mixer. You can put it in coffee. It works with everything, Jameson's.
All right, so the Clocktower questions are pouring in. Thank you for that, Ben. So I'll start with some easy ones. Some I actually know the answer to, but they need to come from you. So, Clocktower, you've just distributed the Grim and are about to visit everybody for the first night. Is it night 0 or is it night 1?
It's night 1. It is night 1. Yeah. I mean, you guys, you can call it what you want, I suppose. But I would, well, not to give too much away, but if you flip to the back of the core rulebook, you'll see that there is a bunch of expansions. There's a bunch of expansions that we are in the process of making. They're currently a pretty high priority for us. And there is a character in one of those expansions that that in its ability involves the number of nights. So it will be like, it's like on night 3 or on night 4 or something, this happens. Like there's a character that does that. So unfortunately, those of you who are in the Night Zero camp, while I'm sure you're all wonderful human beings, you are going to have to come under the fascist heel of the Night One Empire, because we're going to release a character that requires it.
We need to quote that. The fascist heel of the Night One Empire. Oh, that's so great. All right, so I believe I know the answer to this one as well. I think we're on the same page, but what is your favorite Base 3 script and why?
I really like Bad Moon Rising. I like it for a number of reasons. I like it because I'm inherently drawn to things that nobody else likes. I think we all enjoy an underdog, but like I like playing and doing the weird thing. So like if I'm playing Magic the Gathering or something like that, I'll generally build decks that are bizarre and suboptimal but have this cool quirky little thing. I've gone on and on at length about my love for Blood Bowl in the past, and I particularly like playing the races in Blood Bowl that suck, like halflings and ogres and all the crap teams, because you can do weird and unexpected things with them. They give you it seems universal across all games and all media. If you're the guy who does the weird stuff, you're getting a unique experience. And I feel like if you're going to play a game like Blood on the Clocktower, you already are someone who likes unique experiences. And I just think Bad Moon Rising is like the epitome of the unique experience script, because it's not, you can't just sit there and expect information to come to you. You have to go out there and grab it by the balls, and oftentimes you have to sacrifice your life or the life of people that you like and trust. You have to really put stuff on the line to get information in that script, and that's why I love it. Some people call it chaotic. I think that's about perspective, really. I think Bad Moon Rising's the least chaotic script, because ultimately everything's binary in that script. Did I die? Yes, I did. Was it because of my ability or someone else's? That's not chaos at all. That's just very simple maths.
I like it. So you mentioned some other games. So I'm inclined to ask, how did you get into gaming? Like, what was your gateway drug game? And going back to a similar time whenever it started for you, what was your favorite game? Or maybe what was your favorite game then, and what's your favorite game of all time? You're probably required to say Clocktower.
Are we talking specifically tabletop, or are we going beyond?
I'll say besides Blood on the Clocktower. outside of Clocktower, anything. It can be anything. It could be tabletop games. It could be video games. It could be outdoor things that you play. Like when I was a kid, I played a heck of a lot of Flashlight Tag Werewolf and Kick the Can, and they're some of the greatest times I've ever had. It could be anything that got you into gaming as a whole.
I think so all kids like to play games, right? But I kind of feel like I as a really young kid, I really enjoyed not just playing games, but like understanding them on a sort of deeper level. Like, I'm fortunate that my dad's kind of a bit of a nerd, but for unusual things. So like my dad is obsessed with, and this is a term that I imagine people outside of the UK might not be familiar with, but the football pyramid, which is so soccer is quite egalitarian compared to some American sports. It's not like, I know that in the US, it's generally teams will get invited to take part in the competition, and then they'll all take part in it. And yeah, whereas in the UK, or in association football, that's not how it works. You rise through the ranks, not based on whether or not you're invited, but based on your performance. And so what you've got is you can go all the way down past, all the famous teams like Manchester United and Chelsea, and go further and further and down, and get to the point where some little village that has like 150 people living in it, they've got a football team that's like 16 levels below the Premier League. That's what my dad likes. He likes that shit for some reason, but he likes how it's structured. He likes that like the northern and southern divisions coalesce, and and form into this like larger division and all of that like nerdy shit. He loves it, and he instilled the love of that in me. And what that ended up doing for me was I'd be like at a kid's birthday party, and they'll be playing Pass the Parcel. And I'm assuming you had that at US parties, right? Where you'll pass the parcel now.
What, we probably had something similar, but we didn't call it Pass the Parcel. So tell me about Pass the Parcel.
Yeah, so it's a common. Oh my god! But the answer to this question is already going.
They love it. Don't worry.
Yeah. So Pass the Parcel is one of those kids games that you play at parties where some music is playing, and when an adult stops the music, something happens. In this case, there's like a gift wrapped parcel going around all the kids sat in a circle. And when the music stops, the kid that's holding it, like, unwraps a degree of it, and inside there'll be some, candy or whatever. But then there's another wrapped gift inside that they continue to pass. And, like, after it's all been unwrapped, the kid who is last holding it, that kid gets, like, the big prize. They win Pass the Parcel. But the thing is, when I was a kid, I didn't want to play Pass the Parcel. I wanted to be in charge of starting and stopping the music, because I was more interested in the mechanics, what little there are, of Pass the Parcel than I was in actually like participating in the game. And so that's kind of informed me as a gamer throughout my entire life. So when I'm playing tabletop, I want to be the GM, I want to be the dungeon master, I want to be the storyteller, I want to be the games master. When we're playing PC games, I want to be I like playing cooperative games where I can be the guy on the team who's like, statistically, this is what we should do. Mathematically, we've got a higher chance of success if we do this. Like, I like being the manager, I like being the coach, I like being the GM. And so I've not answered your initial question at all. I'm just fucking rambling about, but the thing is, someone who's like that is gonna naturally be drawn towards the role that I've ended up in, because I imagine a lot of people will look at like a community manager or even a referee for a sport and be like, fucking hell, I feel sorry for that guy. Like, look at everyone's screaming at him, but I love it. I love being, the adjudicator of things, and not because of the power, but because there's just something truly fascinating about setting the scene and watching a bunch of people interact with it and seeing if they do the things that you expect them to, or if they do something completely different. And so I can't really answer what my favorite game is, because I'm kind of not in it for the game. It's more about the people that are playing and how they interact with the mechanics, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. So that kind of naturally weaves its way towards, I mean, it seems very natural, like how and why you got into Clocktower, but how did you end up in this role? Like, how did you become the face and the voice of the Pandemonium Institute and this game?
So I used to work as a freelance games journalist. I used to write for a living. I wrote for like Eurogamer and Rock Paper Shotgun and a bunch of magazines and websites that some of you may have heard of. I think I did an article for Dicebreaker at one point. But that's what I used to do for a living. But freelance writing doesn't pay well at all. In fact, it's fucking awful. So I would regularly have to take other jobs on the side. But I would usually try and find something that I liked. And one of the jobs that I had was I was the manager at a local board game cafe. And in 2018, me and the guys that worked at this cafe, we all went to the UK Games Expo together, which is kind of, like Gen Con or Origins for the UK. It's the biggest board game convention in the UK. And at this cafe that we used to work at, our favourite thing to do at the end of a shift, after the shift is done, we'd lock the doors, get some beers out, invite anyone who's still around to join us, and play some big social deduction games like Werewolf and Mafia, like Avalon, like Betrayal, Murder in Hong Kong, stuff like that. And so when I learned that there was this new social deduction game going to be at the UK Games Expo for 2018, Blood on the Clocktower, where when you die, you can still play. And there's always a reason to lie, even if you're good. And the guy running it can lie to you because you can get poisoned. And I read this and was like, fucking hell, this is like game changing. This is. So as soon as we got to the UK Games Expo, I rushed right up to this tiny little like really tiny little booth that they had, and was just started gushing at them. I was like, oh my God, I think your game's so cool. It's such a great idea. How have you managed to balance this with this? How have you done that? And I just kept coming back all weekend, asking them questions and playing and like just loving the game. And at the end of the weekend, I turned around to Evan, who is now my boss at the Pandemonium Institute, and said, I love this game, man. Like, how can I get more involved? And he said, well, you live in the middle of the UK, you manage a board game cafe in the UK, you go to conventions as a journalist, you seem like the perfect guy to just have a prototype, so can we mail you a copy? And I said, yeah, of course you can. So they mailed me a prototype, and then they kickstarted it and asked for 60 grand and got 600 grand. And I was like, well, I'm having a fucking piece of this pie. So I then contacted them and said, hey, you need a community guy. And they accepted. And yeah, here I am years later, still doing it.
That's so awesome. What a great... Thank you for that share, by the way.
Yeah, well, thanks for asking. I mean, it's really... I was in the right place at the right time, basically, I think.
And that's a lot of life, right? Right place, right time, and then taking action. Like, that's one of the biggest things that I learned recently. Like, similar time frame, 2018, I myself went on just a personal growth journey. And one of the biggest things... There's so many things that I learned, but one of the biggest things that I learned was how important it is to just simply take action, right? Being brave enough or courageous enough or having the balls to just go and say, hey, I want to do this, right? I mean, it wasn't that long ago that I was just some random guy you never heard of, and I was like, hey, Ben, you want to talk to me?
Well, this is the thing, right? If you like, I don't know what it's like to be. So we're both very extroverted people, right?
Yeah.
It's that's what we are. I don't think anyone would deny that. I don't know what it's like to be introverted. But I imagine it closes a lot of doors for you, because I do not have any fear whatsoever about walking up to complete strangers and striking up very deep conversations with them. In fact, it's one of my favorite things to do. And it really does, it opens doors for you, because I think if you're personable, and particularly people like to have questions asked about them and about their thing, right? People love it. Especially in that exact example, I'm going up to this guy who's trying to get a game off the ground. I'm telling him how awesome I think his game is. I'm asking him loads of questions about it and about him, and because the conversation's flowing, I'm like, oh, you're an Aussie, are you? Whereabouts are you from in Australia? Oh, yeah, cool. I got a second cousin that lives down there, and these conversations just flow. And I don't know if we realize sometimes how lucky we are to be able to do that, because I think a lot of folks can't.
Well, you say that, and I absolutely understand where you're coming from, but recently I had somebody reach out to me about collaborating on Twitch for something completely different from Australia. And I just sat and I thought, what an amazing time that we live in. So, and your story is a perfect example of this. I feel like I'm just some random guy, and then some other random guy on the other side of the planet somehow connect and have the opportunity to collaborate on something that you just don't even know where it's going to go. It could be something amazing. I mean, this community included, right? The way the Clocktower community is growing, all of them. I mean, it's just amazing, how people can connect nowadays, and just like this. I mean, it's not like back in the beginning of internet where it was all chat rooms. You can look at people and talk to them and get a feel for who and what they're about, their energy. It's absolutely amazing. So I think it's probably the best time ever to even exist. So I want to quickly go back and first of all, I want to acknowledge Twisted Monster. Thanks for the whiskey question. And something. So Ben, you just mentioned a lot of games that you used to, lock the doors and grab some beers and go and play until you found Clocktower. Sunayama wants to know that besides Blood on the Clocktower, what's your favorite social deduction game?
Oh, that's a very difficult one to answer. So I'm a really big fan of Murder in Hong Kong, Deception, Murder in Hong Kong, because what I like about that is you can play it with anybody. It has mechanics in there so that pretty much you can play it with your grandma. You can play it with your 8-year-old kid as well, because it's all pictorial. I don't know if you're familiar with this game, Steve. Have you played Murder in Hong Kong? I
have not played it. I've heard of it, but I've not played it.
Let me give you the elevator pitch then. I think you'll like it. It's pretty cool.
I'm in.
So, a bunch of players are suspects in a murder that's occurred in Hong Kong, And one player, the GM, is called the forensic scientist. And basically, each player has 8 randomly selected cards with things on them face up in front of them, and these things will be like lead pipe, dirt on the floor, floppy disk, just like random shit basically. And whichever one of those players did the murder, they've secretly selected 2 of these things as crucial evidence. And then what happens is the guy running it, the forensic scientist, he flips over a board that has a bunch of like key bits of evidence, I guess, on them. It'll be things like temperature of the room, freezing cold, mild, tepid, room temperature, warm. The other one will be like condition of the corpse, mutilated, serene, all this kind of stuff. And what happens is the guy running it, he's not allowed to speak, but he takes a bullet and he puts it next to the one that most resembles the 2 pieces of key evidence in front of the guy who did the murder. And then what happens is everyone goes around in a circle, and each player looks at what the forensic scientist has shown them, and they have to come up with a theory. They have to be like, well, given that he said the corpse has been mutilated, I think Alan over here, he's got an axe. Maybe it was Alan with the axe and something else. And it encouraged, because you have to go around the circle and listen to everyone, it kind of has in its mechanics enforced participation, which means everybody gets an equal say. It's very egalitarian. And then the guy running it, after one round of that, will remove one of his boards that he thinks is the least relevant, bring a new one in. And that goes on for 3 rounds. And each player at any point can make their one guess. I think it was this guy with that and that. And once that guess is gone, they don't get another guess after that. I've gone the very scenic route to this. But as you can imagine, this can be simultaneously really hilarious and really tense, because you've got all these guys staring each other down from the other side of the table like, did you do it? Did you? But here's the thing, the killer chose the 2 fucking stupidest items he could think. So I had a game where somebody murdered someone with a floppy disk and a sonnet. Like, how? How did that even happen?
That's awesome.
Imagine that. What would you even do? If you read some Shakespeare, you're just ramming a floppy disk down their throat. Simultaneously the most terrific and beautiful way to go.
Oh, wow. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I can't wait to play. I'm open to anything. In fact, recently we just did a test run of Alice is Missing. And I had an absolute blast. I can't wait to get it set up in the community.
Is that the RPG where you do it over text?
Yeah.
Yeah, that does look pretty cool. I love that, innovative ways to run narrative games.
Yeah,
we really are living in the golden age of that, aren't we?
Yeah, actually we are. I mean, that's kind of how it started. Not necessarily the interactive piece, but games themselves were a lot of text-based, single-player RPGs. All right, so I'm going to shift. We're going to bounce all around, and I'm going to shift back to Clocktower. So I've got a few Clocktower questions for you. Turn up the heat a little bit, and then we'll ease off. So Lollipop Luxray has asked, what do you think about roles in Blood on the Clocktower that might adversely affect how people interact with each other? For example, mastermind and politician.
Well, adversely affect, I think, it depends on the group, really, doesn't it? I mean, I'm extremely privileged because I think when people play Clocktower with me, they behave maybe a little bit differently to how they sometimes do when I'm not around, because that's just that's one of the things about being who I am. I get a lot of face time with the community, and so I think people sometimes tend to be on the best behavior when I'm around. But
which is a great thing.
I don't get to see a lot of people being pricks, to be honest with you. But I am acutely aware that it happens. It's inevitably going to happen in a game where you're sat in a circle calling each other liars and stuff. It's going to get a bit heated. But I think that at the end of the day, I like to compare Clocktower to D&D in a lot of respects, because there's a lot of crossover there, and it's easy to explain things. If you've got a group that's really only cares about smashing through dungeons, looting corpses, min-maxing, getting all the best stats, getting all the gear, run that campaign for them, because that's what they want. If you've got a group that want to spend the entire campaign hanging out in a tavern, solving cute little mysteries in the local city, run that campaign for them. If you've got a group where people are going to ostracize someone because they've admitted they're the politician, don't put a politician in the scripts. Like, it's spicy. If people don't like spicy food, don't fucking feed them spicy food. That's what I think about those characters. It goes back to the I hate this phrase because it's usually used by pricks to demand that they get to do whatever they want. But you can't say that we should not eat steaks because a child can't chew them. At the end of the day, like, the politician is there for people who like the politician, the mastermind, the evil twin, all these characters that can sort of single someone out as inherently possibly a danger. They're there for people who like that. But the people who like that are the people who are still inclusive about it, who enjoy having that spiciness be a part of their game. And that's what I think about those characters.
Yeah, I've seen actually both ends, specifically with the politician. I think I've only run it twice, maybe 3 times, but the first memory that I have of actually running a game with a politician, and it went spectacularly well. It was really great. Nobody had any idea the politician was the politician. And the way that they had played it was very sort of under the radar, but fly by night, and like, I could be poisoned, I might not be poisoned. And they were dancing that line, like trying to make sure that they won. Which in the end they did with the winning team. And then I've had one where it just left a really bad taste in everybody's mouth. Nobody liked how it went. But it's, there's no for sure mechanic to it, right? I mean, in my opinion, the greatest thing about Clocktower is the human element. There's no like, I put all these in and it makes a great game. Because I've had spectacular games where I've had all top 4 roles in the game. I've had the town loaded: Undertaker, Empath, Fortune Teller, Slayer, Mayor, like all the really strong town roles, and they managed to find a way to lose. Like, it doesn't matter what you do. Like, the human element, you just can't calculate. Like, there's no way to compensate. You just hit the random and let it go.
Yeah, a lot of people. One thing that I often find, people who have first like being introduced to Clocktower, who don't quite understand the necessity of that human moderator, a lot of them will say, hey, why don't you just automate this, like Town of Salem? Why don't you just have an AI or a bot do it for you? And it's like, that simply just won't work at all. In fact, I actually ran a game of Clocktower with my friend Jack where we rolled dice for every decision, and it was awful. It was really bad. Like, it was entertaining, but it wasn't. It was an objectively bad game of Clocktower, and it was objectively bad because we every night randomized what the empath was going to learn, because they were actually drunk. So it was like night 1 0, night 2 2, night 1, night 3 0, night 4 1, and it's like they just knew that they were drunk. Like, it completely took the entire sting out of it. You need that human moderator, because it really does. It adds. It's not just like a guiding hand to make sure the mystery remains a mystery, but it's also a part of the puzzle in and of itself, right? What would this guy do? If I were poisoned, what would they show me, and why would they show me that, and how does it relate to what I already know? It's just so crucial, I think. Yeah,
absolutely. So continuing the Clocktower barrage here for you. What is your... So Spirit K wants to know, what is your least favorite Clocktower character? Or, put another way, is there anything, any character or any mechanic in Clocktower that you're tired of?
That's a difficult question to answer, because, this is going to sound really cheesy, but it's the truth. I'm here because I really, really love Clocktower. I'm not here for the money, put it that way. I got into this position because I genuinely am obsessed with the game. I genuinely can just play it every day and never get bored of it.
Nice.
And part of being such a big fanboy for something is that there isn't really anything that I dislike about it, or that I'm tired of about it, or characters that I don't like. I think that I go through phases of like being into characters and then maybe getting a little bored of them. I think the one, if someone put a gun to my head and was like, pick a character now, I would probably choose mathematician. Not because I dislike it, but because it just scares me. There's like, I've got like a blind spot to it for some reason, where even I understand how it works, right? If another player's ability has affected someone else's ability and caused it to not work properly, then that's one for the mathematician. Like, I understand that, but for some reason I'll stand there with the grimoire in the night being like, oh, what is this, that, you know? I don't know why, I just can't. It terrifies me. But the problem is I regularly say this online, so now I have to put the mathematician in, because people are going to be like, he's not going to put the mathematician in, it's well known that he's terrified of it.
Well, I know that not to be true, because the last time that we ran a game together, we had the mathematician, and I remember you bringing that up. And when I've run mathematician on stream games, like, I solicit chat's input. I mean, one, it's helpful, it can be, right? Because you as a storyteller would know right away, like, oh no, that's oh yeah, thanks for the reminder, or no, that's not actually correct. And then there's the whole mechanic. So let me ask you this, because you brought up mathematician. If let's say two characters' abilities were affected by someone else's, and the mathematician. So technically, would the correct answer be a 3? And because the mathematician was impacted, say they get false info, what would you give them?
So that's an interesting one, right? Because it is 3, but if you give them a 2, you've still given them good kosher information, essentially, right? In all but name, you've given them correct info. So I think in a situation like that, I would give them a 0 or a 1, because, you know, the mathematician's poisoned or drunk for a reason. Our job as storytellers is to, you know, make a balanced game, and it's not balanced if someone is trying to poison the mathematician and you're giving them information that is extremely useful to them. That's not in the spirit of what's happening there, so I would probably give them a 0 or a 1. And then ultimately, that's what it's all about, I think. That, like, this, I've never been a fan of, like, rules as written over spirit of the rules. Like, if we're going to be running a game and wanting everyone to have a good time, you've kind of got to go with the spirit of the rules first, haven't you, really? Although It is an interesting little dichotomy. Mathematicians, ironically, would probably appreciate that particular one.
I'm sure there's a algebraic algorithm for figuring out that they would come up with. Speaking of that, so I've got TB Blue Snowfox wants to know, what is your favorite ECG game that you've been a part of with us? Or do you even remember?
Oh man, I'm gonna seem like such a douche now.
No, dude, you run every day. You play thousands of games. Trust me.
I run like 4 or 5 games a week normally. I genuinely can't remember any specific things about any of those games. I just enjoyed hanging out with you, Steve. To be honest.
Thanks, Ben.
Well, that's my prevailing memory of those games is our colour commentary that we were doing back and forth. So that was my favourite thing about those games, because it's the only thing I fucking remember.
That's awesome.
I hope you don't mind me using the blue language on your channel.
I don't. No. It's fine. I want you to be 100% you. I don't care about censoring, monetization, none of that stuff. The people want to know Ben, so give us the raw version of Ben. So Lay wants to know, by the way, Lay, I hope you're not butthurt about the game that we played where we kept you in the dark. It was an amazing game and you won. But Lay wants to know, jelly and ice cream, why is it the superior party snack?
Jelly and ice cream. Well, I mean, you can feed it to anyone, right? You can feed it to a 3-year-old. If grandma's forgot to bring her false teeth, she can probably work her way through that as well. I think practicality is why it's the superior party snack. Although, you know, I prefer, when I'm at a party, I prefer my snacks to be slightly more alcoholic. Although that is an option with jelly, right? You can just dump a load of cheap vodka in there, and Grandma will really enjoy that.
For sure. Not just for Grandma anymore. All right, so Just Jack would like to know, what is something, so from your perspective, what is something that is considered uniquely American as a stereotype that folks in the UK just don't understand why exists?
Oh God, we're gonna get serious now, Jack. I mean, there's a lot of like American stereotypes, but I think the one that that a lot of Brits just aren't even aware of is like the disparity between what we consider like the right of a citizen in the UK and what Americans would consider the right of a citizen. Because in the US, you're very collectively passionate about the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, that it gives you the right to do this and do that, and all these things. I think that would seem like quite oddly specific to a lot of foreigners. You know, the right to bear arms is just, people would think that, most people in Europe would think that's insane, but it's near and dear to the heart of many Americans. Whereas in the UK, if like the National Health Service, for the free access to hospitals without the need for insurance, there would be fucking riots in the streets if our health service shifted even slightly closer to what the US health service is like. So vacation days, maternity leave, these are all things that are like, we don't even think about them. We're probably not even aware of how fortunate we are to have them, but they're just not the case in the US. So I think like the idea of sort of working yourself half to death and then not being able to go to a hospital and get yourself looked after and not having the time, I think that's like the biggest disparity in my mind. And that's when I've got Americans who are saying to me, oh, I can't afford my health insurance and I'm so burnt out, I haven't had a vacation in 8,000 years. That to me is what I think of when I think of Americans. And I think of it because it's changing. There's a movement happening right now, and the kids that are coming up, the Gen Zers now, they're not taking this shit anymore. Things are changing, and sorry, I've proper brought the tone down here, haven't I?
No, I think it's great because I feel exactly the same way. I mean, first of all, to go back to Bill of Rights and Constitution, I'm pretty sure there's a handful of Americans at best who actually know what the hell they are. But I mean, yeah, to your point, like, it's driven me nuts my entire life, and I won't get on a soapbox and go on a tirade right now. But I've my entire career I've been trying to break this system, and it's driven me absolutely bonkers. I can't stand not just what exists, but that it continues to get worse. Everybody knows how bad it is, but no one is doing anything about it. They're all just complaining, sitting back, bending over, and taking it up the shorts. And it's just getting worse and worse and worse and worse. The cost of everything is rising. Wages are not. Like, it's getting bad. And like I said, nobody's doing anything. So who knows? Maybe Ben's got the solution. Or maybe we all just move to the UK. Who knows?
Yeah, do it. I mean, we're a little densely populated, but I'm sure we can, find a field or something that you can all go to.
All right, so to lighten the mood a bit,
Oh my God.
Jack would also like to know, Ben, do you do karaoke?
Yes. Yes, I do. In fact, a lot of people know me as a board game guy, but in another life, I was actually passionate musician guy. I used to be in a signed folk punk band called Blunderbuster. And we released an EP and an album. I've done a few tours. Everything's currently in storage because I've not long since moved into my house, but I have a shitload of instruments. I love playing and singing, and I enjoy a bit of karaoke now and again.
Nice. So, since that's the case, what is your go-to song? Actually, hold on. That's two questions. When you first walk into a karaoke bar, party, scene, whatever, and you're sober, what is your go-to song? This follow-up question is, when you're drunk, what is your go-to song?
Oh my God, okay. So if I'm sober, it's probably Locomotive Breath by Jethro Tull. I'm a big fan of I'm a big fan of prog and classic rock. That song's in E minor, so it's like right in my range. It's dead easy to do, and you can do all the fancy whoa 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 and all that kind of stuff. I love it, and like really show off. When I'm drunk, it's probably Dirty Old Town by the Pogues, because I'm a sad Celtic man who, after too much booze, just wants to sing about lost loves in pre-industrial Manchester or whatever. Oh, and Love Will Tear Us Apart by Joy Division. That one gets like a special mention because I love that song.
Is sober or drunk?
Definitely drunk.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. I put it on like when me and my girlfriend get like sloshed and we're like listening to tunes. I'll eventually put it on and she'll be like, "I hate this song." Like, how can you hate it? It's beautiful. And she's like, "It's literally called Love Will Tear Us Apart." and you put it on.
Oh wow. Oh, that's awesome. So last karaoke question for you. If you could pull off any song in the world, like you've got, I'll give you a 10-minute span where you've got any voice you want and you could just nail any song, what would you sing?
Do you know what? I reckon a lot of people would pick someone with like a really ridiculously good range, like Tina Turner or, something like that. But I'm going to go with Jonathan Davis from Korn, because I want to be able to be like, do all that kind of stuff. Or possibly Bobby McFerrin. He's kind of on a similar vibe, and he was, and all that kind of stuff. Anyone who can take something that isn't a percussion instrument and essentially make it into one has my respect.
That's awesome. That made me think of the human beatbox from the Fat Boys.
Oh, yeah.
Who knows that reference?
Yeah, we're old.
All right, so Bunny Beast is asking, will the new Clocktower tool allow storytellers to shuffle roles, or is the bot going to be added to simulate the experience of an in real life game? Bunny, you might need to give some clarity there.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure. When you say shuffle roles, I'm assuming that refers to like randomly selecting a bunch of roles.
I think the question is, if you hit a sign and it distributes all the roles, is the tool going to be modified in a way that will allow you to edit them? So like, yes. I want to move this roll over here and that roll. Okay.
Yeah. Yes, it's on the agenda. It's going to be coming out quite possibly in the next update. So basically, a lot of like questions that people ask about the app are generally, the free tool does this thing, the app doesn't do it. Why have you taken away this good thing that we like? And the answer to pretty much all of those questions is because we want to do it better, but we've had to strip everything back in order to re-implement it in a better way. So I don't know. Do you know what? I've had a couple of whiskeys. I'm just going to spill some beans that I'm probably not supposed to. So
don't get in trouble.
We've thought about ways that we can better facilitate people handing out roles, and so we are going to re-implement that in a hopefully more intuitive way. But we're also going to add in a fabled character specifically for that. So if you want your players to know that you've handed them roles, you can put this fabled character in that says, some of you have been handed a role. And so, if we're going to have that feature, let's make it a feature of Blood on the Clocktower, not just a feature of the app. Let's add some mechanics to it so that we can incorporate it into our game, just like we're trying to incorporate our game into the app. Because ultimately, the philosophy with the app is, let's marry it with playing in person. Let's try and make the two as close together as we can.
Nice. And that's something I'm actually looking very much forward to, particularly, I know if anybody's watching this back later, it's not going to matter, but tomorrow when we play with Ben and feature the app, I I know I'm going to be asking a lot of questions about it. I'm really excited to be debuting it. I know virtually every other channel has. I know you guys have quite a bit. Obviously, it's your app. So I'm just really excited that we're finally going to feature it, and I'm really grateful that we held back, to the time where we have the opportunity to have you run it. So, all right, jumping off track really quickly, we'll bounce back and forth with a bunch of Clocktower stuff, but in a non-Clocktower related question, so do you play video games? And specifically, Kebulum would like to know, do you play Dead by Daylight?
Yes and yes. So similarly to the question, to when I said I used to be music Ben, I also used to be computer games Ben. So I used to write about them for a living, but I actually went to university to study game design. And when I left university, I started up an indie studio making point-and-click adventure games. So I've always been hugely passionate about digital games as well. And yes, I do play Dead by Daylight, although I haven't played it in a while because a lot of my friends are too afraid of it, and it's a little too intense for them. We're getting a bit long in the tooth now, We're all getting like into our mid-30s. Some of them are pushing 40. One of them is 40. He just doesn't want to come in from work and get chased around by discount Freddy Krueger anymore. But yeah, I really do like Dead by Daylight. In fact, I'm a huge fan of horror in general. I love the genre of horror. Anything horror. I'm a big fan of like Stephen King. I love horror movies. I love horror games. Anything horror I'm into. I'm especially a big fan of bad horror because like when horror is bad, it's really good.
You mean like old school George Romero bad?
Oh no, that's good. I'm talking way worse than that. Like, what about Deathbed, the bed that eats people?
Oh,
that's an actual horror movie.
Yeah, right.
There's another one called what's it called? Poultrygeist, about some people that work in a like fried chicken restaurant, and all of the fried chickens come back to life and start attacking them. Yeah, there's some absolutely like golden turds out there. If only you're willing to search.
Oh wow! Well, I have a feeling that somewhere down in the chat, there's probably already a follow-up question to that, having seen the answer, because Kevlin is very passionate about Dead by Daylight and has started a Dead by Daylight stream on Fridays on our Twitch channel, and I'm quite certain if he hasn't already, he's about to scream. He wants to invite you to come and play Dead by Daylight. I have only played a handful of times. I am a complete noob. And whenever I can, I try to jump in. I think it would be a ball if you ever have the time. You and me and Sean and I think Matt to just get in and go crazy. And I squeal like a little girl.
Yeah, I'm well up for that. I'm more than happy for opportunities to play Dead by Daylight. So yeah, drop me a message on Discord or whatever's your preferred thing, and we'll play. And also if you're up for playing some Phasmophobia, I'm looking for excuses to play some more of that as well. That's Thinking Man's Dead by Daylight. It's all about investigation.
So we've actually, in the ECG community, I've seen a bunch of activity on our server, people playing Phasmophobia. Some people recently have purchased it just to be a part of that. So it's a mini cult that's growing in ECG right now. So I mean, pretty much anything, if you ever invite me to do anything, the answer is yes. I don't care what it is, I'm in. I'll do it. You need a body, you need some crazy whatever, like I'm happy to participate or facilitate whatever it is.
Awesome. I'll invite you to give me your social security number, your PIN number, your mother's maiden name.
All right, 7, 32, and Hubert. All right, so back to a couple of Clocktower related stuff. Big shocker. So Roach would like to know, which demon do you feel is the most powerful regardless of script? And then follow-up question, what is your favorite demon to play?
Oh god, that's a really difficult question to answer. I think, okay, so I'm going to answer that backwards because it's easier this way. My favorite demon of the ones that are out in the public sphere is Shabaloth. That's well known about me. I really like Shabaloth. It was my when I first started running Clocktower, Shabaloth was the moment when I saw that character. It's when I knew that I was going to love this game forever, because it encompasses everything that I love about this game. Each night, wake up and kill 2 people. The guy running it may regurgitate one of them tomorrow. That is Clocktower in a nutshell, right? You get to make a decision, but me, the referee, I get to make a decision as well. Like I just love it. I just love everything about it. I love deciding when to make that regurgitation happen. I love playing as the Shabaloth and going up to the storyteller and being like, look, I'd really appreciate it if you held off on regurgitations. And like, I once pretended as the Shabaloth that I was the courtier that had chosen the Shabaloth, and for 3 nights in a row, I selected dead players, and I told the storyteller, please don't regurgitate any of these, because I need to sell that I really am the courtier. I love it. I love that regurgitation mechanic. What do I think is the most powerful demon? That's a difficult question, but I think probably the imp, because you have an escape hatch. Like, there aren't really any other demons. It's because it's tutorial mode demon, right? That's what makes it powerful. If you give the imp to a seasoned veteran, they know exactly when to pass that input on. And I think that just makes it very, very powerful.
Yeah, and as far as base scripts go, we haven't gotten to custom scripts yet. Quite often, it's got 2 outs, right? So generally for a period of time, in the beginning of the game, if you've got a Scarlet Woman, that's a free pass. And then, like you mentioned, later, it's in your control. If you can dodge the bullet and everybody wants to get rid of you, you can pass it off to a minion. So, yeah. Strong minion. So, speaking of favorites, Mad Timmy wants to know, what is your favorite traveler in all of Blood on the Clocktower?
It's got to be the gangster.
Gangster's pretty great.
So, the gangster's an interesting one as well, because when we were like kickstarting the game, the gangster didn't exist, and it was kind of on a whim at the last minute that Steve was like, "Hey, I've come up with this other traveler. Why don't we throw it in there on those stretch goals, the gangster?" And it's like, at the moment I saw that, I was like, oh my god, this is the best traveler. Because again, it's pure Clocktower, right? You can kill one of your living neighbors if the other one agrees. That's so beautifully player focused. Like, and you're there as like a broker, I guess, essentially being like, oh look, I want to kill someone. What can I do? What can I give you in return that will convince you to say yes? Okay, well, he's not buying. What can I give you in return? I love that. I love that you have to get in there and be a salesman.
Nice. All right. The non-unique guy has got an engineer-specific question.
Okay.
Actually, I think that they're just asking, is there an engineer asterisk project? Meaning, is there any thought to putting an asterisk next to the engineer so that their ability cannot fire night 1?
First of all, let me have a quick look at the engineer. I do know what it does, but it's important to be specific when we're talking about wording. Right, engineer, where are you? Somewhere here. There we go. Okay. Once per game at night, choose which minion or which demon is in play. Yeah, okay, that's exactly as I remember it. So I don't. I kind of feel like that question needs to come loaded with why that person thinks it needs an asterisk. I suppose. Like, is it because they think that mechanically it's bad to have the engine, it's too powerful or something? Because I think that choosing on night 1 is actually quite a weak decision. I think the best thing an engineer can do is to sit tight, try and work out what demon and minion we do have. Then you make the decision whether you want to change the demon or the minion, because that's an important decision. And you make it at a point where evil are going to get hurt by it. Because the evil team start the game with all the opportunities in the world to create false narratives, right? But by night 3 or 4, shit's starting to crumble for them. They've had to back out of a lie. This isn't working. That's no longer a viable world. At that point, if an engineer strikes, they are in serious trouble. So I don't really think it needs an asterisk. And I think if we gave it an asterisk, it would actually just make it more powerful. Because it would force people to play better with it. But that is strictly my opinion. I just want to put that out there. Like, I'm talking a big game here, but I'm not like an expert on the engineer. I'm not seen it in action that much, if I'm honest.
I know we have one game I think that might be out right now that had an engineer. We don't have a lot of scripts where we run engineer. I love the concept of the character. The only time I recall ever running it, sadly, the engineer chose to make the demon what the demon already was. So I
think that's the thing. There's a few characters like the engineer, like the atheist, like the heretic, where they really need a script that's built for and around them.
Yeah.
Like a lot of times, I think on a script, the people will generally have an agreed consensus about what the strongest demon is on there, or what the most desirable, or more importantly, least desirable demon is on there. I think if you're going to put the engineer on a script, you need to work hard to make it so that all of the demons and minions have like a consistent use from the moment the game begins to the moment it ends. If you've got a Baron on there, the engineer is always going to put a Baron in, right? Because it doesn't do anything after the start of the game. If you've got a Scarlet Woman on there, the engineer is almost always not going to pick that because it's so strong. It's so useful.
Yeah. Good shout on the Baron too. Like that would be a great minion to be on an engineer script. So taking a hard left and shifting back to jelly and ice cream. What kind of jelly on what kind of ice cream?
Oh, do you know what? I'm really quite boring culinarily, I'm afraid. So I was raised by grandparents, and as I'm sure many of you who have grandparents will know, they just cook the shit out of everything. Nothing tastes of anything. So I got sort of thrust out into the wild world at the age of 18 with all these spices being thrown at me, and I was like, yeah, I'm afraid I'm a bit old school in that regard. So, I mean, do you know what? What even flavors are there of jelly? There's like the red one, the orange one, and the green one, right?
All right, we may have just found a stark difference between the US and the UK now.
Are we talking about jam? Are we talking about the preserve? Or are we talking about Jello jelly? Because I know that some of you guys call jam jelly.
Oh, I think we've stumbled onto something new. So jelly and ice cream might not be what I think it is, because when I think of jelly, just in general, it's the way you just did. So from a, I guess, somewhat slang kind of term. So we have Jell-O, the jiggly cold stuff.
Yeah,
and then
jelly to me.
Okay, so you actually have Jell-O and ice cream. In my vernacular.
That's a really common party food. Yeah, I thought that's like... So hang on a minute, you lot eat jam and ice cream?
No! But that's what I thought you were talking about, and I was like, that's weird, but okay. I mean, I've had some really strange culinary combinations that I thought would never work, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. One thing I stayed away from a large portion of my life, just because visually it's disgusting, is ketchup and eggs. But once I accidentally got it on my eggs without noticing and tasted it, I was like, oh my god, what did I just eat? And I just discovered this magic concoction.
Wow. I don't know if I describe it as a magic concoction.
Well, disclaimer, I fucking love ketchup. Like,
oh, do you know what? Like, as well, slight off from the beaten track here, but I'm a huge fan of eggs. Like, I can happily eat like half a dozen eggs a day. I'm like that guy from Beauty and the Beast. What's his name? Gaston. You know, he just constantly eats eggs. I love eggs. And I love omelets. I love making omelets. I'll happily spend ages making really complex omelets and then just devour them. They're just the perfect food. They're low in calorie. They taste good. They go with anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we've not answered the question, have we? favorite flavor of jelly and ice cream. Jelly flavor, I'm indifferent. I kind of feel like it's the weak partner in this duo, honestly. Like, I'm not. If someone says you're having a thing in ice cream, I'm not there for the thing. I'm there for the ice cream. Let's be real. Jelly, cheap, nonsense. Ice cream, awesome. I really love chocolate flavored stuff. So, yeah, if anything even remotely chocolate flavored, I'll almost always default to that. But what about you, Steve? What kind of ice cream are you into?
Ooh, wow. That's a whole nother hour-long conversation, my friend.
Is it ketchup flavored ice cream?
No.
Eggs and ketchup.
Wow, ice cream. Okay. My current fave, because it shifts. I'm a connoisseur of sorts when it comes to ice cream, and I don't get to have it that much. So I take it really seriously when I do. And right now, so we have a very small chain of local farmers markets where I live called Detweiler's. And they source from a local creamery their ice cream. And they have one called triple peanut butter that is just the shit. It's so
you know
good.
Like, I'm changing my answer to that. That sounds awesome. I love peanut butter. I really love peanut butter.
Me too.
In fact, I'm a big fan of Reese's because that wasn't a thing over here. Like growing up, there was no Reese's at all in the UK. It's only over the last decade or so that there's been an explosion of American candy being imported over here. And I've discovered Reese's in the last as an adult. And I love that stuff so much.
It's got mini Reese's in it. The triple peanut butter,
yeah. There you go. I'm sold.
It's got like a wave, like the ice creams that have like a fudge swirl through it. There's a peanut butter swirl through this. It's so good.
Really selling visiting you between that and the German beer place. I kind of
Come on, let's do it.
Might have to apply for citizenship.
They do make so. Today I stepped out of bounds. I thought I missed it because it comes around every October. It's probably an October-November thing because pumpkin is synonymous with both Halloween and Thanksgiving. But for a very limited time, they have a pumpkin swirl ice cream, and they make a pumpkin milkshake where they use pumpkin swirl ice cream and a slice of pumpkin pie all go into the blender with some milk and create one of the greatest shakes you're ever gonna have. Oh my God. It's so good. Awesome. And then I'll end with this for Christmas. Only in the month of December until they run out of it, they release a Christmas cookie ice cream that tastes exactly like Christmas cookies I used to eat as a kid. It's like traveling back in time and eating cookies, except I'm eating ice cream, which is just the greatest. It's like the most wonderful combination of having an experience, and it's really bad for me because once I get a hold of it, I can't stop eating it.
Oh yeah, no, I'm the same, man. Like I eat a whole thing.
I could too.
There's no portions for me.
I literally could go through a half gallon, like, just give me a spoon and I could do it. All right, so a question fired a little while ago, and I want to take this back because it's kind of egg related. So Jack would like to know, would you rather, I love these questions, would you rather be forced to live with 100 cats or 100 ducks, and why?
Well, do you know what? My answer to that is probably going to be quite dull. I'm going to go with cats because I'm familiar with them, and they live in houses normally as opposed to ducks. Have you ever been to a place with a lot of ducks? There's just like duck shit everywhere. It's all like. So there's that,
but I'm going to vehemently disagree with your incorrect decision, sir. And here's why.
I suppose you do get the duck eggs, but
well, that's part of it, right? So you mentioned the con already. We'll start with cats, though. First of all, 100 cats. The investment in kitty litter and cat food alone is going to be backbreaking. Plus, all those cat boxes you got to clean. That's a 24/7 job with 100 cats. Screw that mess. Plus the way your house will smell. Oh my God. And all the cat hair. Are you kidding me? Now ducks, granted, like you said, they will shit on everything. There's no stopping it. But ducks produce eggs, and ducks are delicious.
Yeah, but I mean, if we're gonna talk finances, I know some of you Americans live in big sprawling estates with swimming pools and shit, but I live in a terraced house in Derby. If I were to have 100 ducks, I would have to like go and buy some land and get a pond or something. Whereas 100 cats, it wouldn't be pleasant, but I could probably fit them all in here. And the question specifically was forced. Yeah. I've got to choose one of these.
Yes.
I am not having 100 ducks in this house.
Oh, that's awesome. All right. Let's see. Who's got another really great question that I haven't made it to yet? I'm not actually seeing one. Everybody's enjoying oh. In reference to your whiskey drinking and karaoke, Jack has commented that his go-to karaoke song is going to be "Kiss Me, I'm Shit-Faced" by Dropkick Murphys.
by the Dropkick Murphys, yeah. I love Dropkick Murphys, man. I'm a huge fan of Dropkick Murphys, Flogging Molly, Neck, all those kind of folk punk bands. I love that stuff.
Nice.
Yeah, that is a good choice.
All right, so in a Clocktower related question, so the Lost roommate is asking, if you could have any celebrity play Blood on the Clocktower, who would it be and why?
Oh, it's got to be Stephen Fry, right? Imagine playing Clocktower with Stephen Fry. He nominates you and gives this incredibly eloquent and detailed accusation, and then you're just like, yeah, well, you know what? I am actually good, but I kind of feel like we should execute me now.
That's awesome. So I'm seeing some chatter from chat that they were really excited about your Dead by Daylight comment, as I assumed that they would, and a bunch of them now, they all want to play with you. So definitely look out for that message in the future, and let's set something up. Another really great question. Clocktower related, or I don't know. What would be a great name for a Blood on the Clocktower themed beer?
I mean, beer on the Clocktower is my immediate choice, but I'm sure you can with something a bit more subtle than that, right?
That's so great. Beer on the Clocktower. Let's do it. So I know where this is coming from because I know my cousin asked a question. He's got I believe a college friend in Chicago who owns a brewery, and the brewery is right next to, I believe, a playhouse, performing arts kind of locale. And so because the friend is a brewmaster, I can kind of put the puzzle pieces together and see, like, would you be obliged to having a Blood on the Clocktower or Ben Burns themed beer created for you?
I mean, that would be amazing. That would make my life, having my own beer. I'm pretty enthusiastic about ale. I would love that, yeah. And I think that a Clocktower inspired ale would be awesome as well. But we would have to think long and hard, because there's got to be like a pun somewhere in there, something to do with hops or malts or brew or something. There's got to be something in there. Oh, we've got Trouble Brewing, right? So we could have, yeah, we've already got the beginnings of something there.
Yes.
Yeah, we can make that happen. When I'm not drinking whiskey, we'll talk about this more seriously. Let's make a beer. Let's do it.
Oh, awesome. All right, shifting back to video games. Do you love is what the question is. Do you love Monkey Island?
Oh yeah, I love Monkey Island. So actually, when I left university and started that indie studio, we were making a point-and-click adventure game called Go to Hell, Dave, about a guy called Dave who dies in a car accident and wakes up at the gates of hell and has to navigate hell to be reunited with his love, Sharon, who also died in the car accident. Sounds dark, but it's actually really stupid, really silly, and it's still got a Greenlight page. You can look this up right now and see our Steam Greenlight page, I imagine. But yeah, I'm a huge fan of point and clicks, and obviously Monkey Island is a seminal point and click adventure game. I think that the intro to Monkey Island, where it's sort of pans over Mealy Island and it's like plays this like really cool Caribbean sort of reggae rock and roll track, that always sends shivers down my spine when I see that intro, because it just video games, and especially like music and stuff, has that ability to sort of transport you back like 25 years in time to when you first saw something, and just for a moment you feel like a little kid again, like you're seeing it again for the first time. Final Fantasy VII has the same effect on me as well. I played the crap out of that when I was a kid, and whenever I hear any music from that, it just like instantly snaps me back to being a little kid playing PS1.
You know what? There was a question asked. So I'm going to ask you this question, which is probably a short one, but I'll ask you to drag it out because that reminds me of a question that I saw today on our community server, and I want to see if I can go and find it for you really quickly. So in the meantime, Spirit K has asked, do you prefer to play in person or virtually? Why?
Well, the answer to that is in person, because it was a game that was designed to be played in person, and so I think a lot of its strengths are strongest in person. That's not to say that some of the best games I've had have been online and digitally, and there are certainly strengths of playing digitally that are not present in person. They're two somewhat distinct games, but I don't think anything beats being in a room with people, looking them in the eye, actually the tactility of human communication and contact face to face. Nothing really beats it. And there is an understanding when you play in person. Conversation flows more easily. People don't talk over each other because we have an innate understanding of body language. We can see when someone is about to grab the baton and start talking, and we understand that we're going to stop talking, and this person's going to talk, and then this guy's going to jump in. It just happens in person. Whereas online, it can sometimes get a little bit jumbled, especially at larger numbers. So for that reason, and a few more, I think I do prefer in person. But at the end of the day, most of us, myself included, don't have the opportunity to play Clocktower in person as much as we would perhaps like to. And so playing online is, almost as good and certainly more than adequate.
Yeah, I have to say they're, in a way, they're vastly different experiences. And then on the other hand, they're very close to being the same. I find that if you just address the nuances that exist in online, and there's really two tiers of playing online. So there's what we have openly, like what we stream and what we put on YouTube and what we do offline on our Discord server, which is essentially just like voices in the dark, right? Little rooms, broken out, and people talk to each other, but that's all you have. And so the nuances to play there are who's got naturally loud voices versus who's got a very low tone, whose mic gain is very, very high and whose is not high enough. And in those situations, like it can create scenarios where people talk over other people simply because they're louder. People feel like they're being talked over because of that reason, and it's not an actual offense, like no one's actually trying to it. There's a technology aspect to that. And so when you identify these things and can, hopefully you mitigate them, but even if you can't, like I know for us, one thing that was really important to me in building community was the respect angle, and trying to teach everybody some very basic and natural human psychology bits about when something is said / done, there's a very natural response that you don't actually consciously think of that makes somebody feel like you don't care what I have to say, what you're saying, what I have to say doesn't matter, like only you're important. Those aren't thoughts that go across people's heads, but those are the messages ultimately that are being received. So we put a lot of concerted effort into making sure that does not happen, because the most important thing is the fun. Like earlier you mentioned, especially in person, it's almost fun in person when things get heated because everybody knows it's just a game and you're there. Like the physiology aspect of the game is present. And I don't know how many people watching are aware, but like physiology is literally 55% of the way we communicate. And so when you play online, the biggest way you communicate is now vacant. So you're dependent on simply words and tonality. And most people don't know how to leverage that. They just know how to be themselves. Yeah. So that's what I mean by like there's a vast difference, but at the same time, if you can control those aspects and provide the right environment to make sure that everybody has fun, and by the time you finish your game, everybody's laughing and congratulating each other, then there's virtually no difference, right, between online and in person. I would love to do a lot more in person. I'm certain you would, and I bet everybody else would. I'm really grateful, though, that this company, like you as a company and as a storyteller, have been able to find a way to present the game in an online fashion and are now providing an app that really, I think, simulates live in-person play infinitely better than the tool that's available to everybody. I don't want to say because but will erase everything that you said previously. The really cool thing about it being online is being able to connect with people all over the world. And like, I would have never met you if it wasn't for this game and the ability to play online. And so many people that are part of our community, we're US based, it's largely US, but we're having a wonderful UK invasion on the server right now. We had a really great time, I think it was last night, playing. It's just awesome to meet so many people and attract so many positive people that your game has really empowered. So I want to thank you for that.
Oh, thank you. That's very kind of you. Yeah, I'm glad to hear. I'm glad to hear that it's not all misery and accusation. And that apparently the Brits are behaving themselves when they're out in public on your server.
Well, most of them. Nothing's ever 100%, right? So I have a couple more Clocktower questions here really quickly. And by the way, I'm getting sensitive to time, so you let me know when you want to wrap up, because I'm sure everybody could listen to you go on all night long, and I know it's late for you. So first quick question, is it ever a bad idea, is it ever a good idea to let the tinker decide when they die?
That's an interesting one, actually. I don't think I've ever thought about that before. I think if you allow the tinker to decide when they die, you negate the whole point of the tinker, which is you might die at any time, because a time of your choosing is the opposite of any time. It's one time, which is very far away from any. So I think that's probably a bad idea. But at the end of the day, what even is the definition of a bad idea? If you're having fun, if everyone else is having fun, if the tinker's having fun, do what you're all having fun doing. Or alternatively, just house rule in like a fabled character or something. Let everybody know that that's how you're going to run the tinker. As long as everyone's on the same page, really, that's 95% of what matters, is that you're honest and consistent. And beyond that, rule of fun prevails as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, along those lines, I won't say that I've done it. I've sort of half done it. So I played in a game where I had a player make the suggestion, or essentially it came across as it would be hilarious on, like, after the first night if I woke up dead. Because they were the tinker and they could die anytime. And so right, okay. I always thought that it was, it would just be a dick move. And it's also very, game confirming. They're definitely the tinker. But along the lines of, in the name of fun, I knew it would be hilarious. And I knew that they were good with it. I knew everybody else would laugh at it. And they did. It was met with roaring applause. It was like, it's day one and so-and-so's dead. Everyone's like, what?
I think that's an example where it doesn't matter, really, does it? Because at the moment the game's begun, they've been objectively proven to be the tinker. Yeah. So it doesn't matter whether they requested it or not at that point. It hasn't affected the game in any way. I think the only thing that does matter is that you don't, like, if you're going to do it, don't admit that you would do it, because then people will meta, and then the evil team might be like, okay, hey, listen, storyteller, like, I know you're going to have to kill an evil player soon because it's a little monster game and we're all still alive. Kill me tonight. I'm going to say that I asked you to kill me because I know that you are willing to kill tinkers and I'm claiming tinker. So there's a whole other, vast continent of potential metas right there that you could probably derive from that. So, I'm coming around to the idea a bit more now. I think I've talked myself into it.
I think you've talked yourself into it situationally. Like, that is a really great scenario, but you're not the tinker. Right? No. Your scenario is, I'm a minion and I'm lying about being tinker. Like, yeah, so I get it. I mean, I'm open to suggestions, and I'm also, so one thing that I do for the community, and it's probably not out there enough, but I want people to have the best experience possible so badly that I think about like, what would I want, playing, because I barely ever get to play. But as a player, like what would I want if, especially with the rarity of the opportunity? And it would be that if a certain character was in the game, I would really like to be that character. Either I've never played it before, or it's really, really fun. And so for my folks, I've told them all, like, I don't understand right now what's going on, honestly. If you message me privately and let me know, then I'll keep it in the realm so that when we play a game and that character ends up in that game and you're playing the game, I'll force the token over there. No one knows it. You've not publicly outed. Unfortunately, I've also got players who every single game are like, I want to be this, or I don't want to be that. And I'm like, well, there's no way I can give you what you want now. You're going to be the thing you don't want to be, or are you? And that's the thing. I think it's really important to mix everything up, right? You talked about being meted. I genuinely put a lot of effort into no one can see their own blind spots, right? So I'm sure there's things like, someone pointed out to me that anytime to date, at that moment in time, and to be fair, the majority after, anytime that I've run a script that had a Godfather, I only ever add an outsider. I never subtract one. Fair. And I forcibly made myself do the opposite. And interestingly enough, the first game that I ran where I subtracted an outsider, there was only one outsider in a Godfather game, and they actually executed that outsider, and the Godfather got to kill. Another game where I added an outsider for the Godfather and the Fang Goose, so there were 4 outsiders in that game. None of them got executed.
Typical.
The Godfather never got the kill.
Classic,
so I was like, wow,
Murphy's Law.
Really doesn't matter, does it?
I think, yeah, you highlight a really good point there, though, that you do have to do those things. So, like, I obviously run a lot of games of Clocktower, and I get a lot of, I'm criticized a lot, which is like reasonable, because, if 1,000 people see a thing, at least a handful of them are gonna not like it and be somewhat critical of it. But I've been criticized in the past for that exact scenario where I've done a Godfather -1. And I think a lot of people don't realize you have to do this. Like, you have to do this once in a while. Otherwise, the Godfather might as well just say +1 outsider.
Right.
There's other examples, like I think I made a damsel drunk or something, and a lot of people weren't a fan of that. And it's like, yeah, no, I agree. It's not an optimal thing to do, but you have to do the weird thing sometimes, because if you don't, everyone will know that you're never going to do it.
Yeah. And speaking of, like, you mentioned making mistakes too, right? Like, in fact, it's funny because my first thought went all the way back to when I was first introduced to Clocktower. It was because my cousin reached out to me and was like, you got to watch this. It was the first NRB video that they put out. And I remember thinking, like, I pulled it up on YouTube and I'm like, 2 hours. I was like, F that. Like, I'm not going to sit here and watch this.
Yeah, that's exactly what my dad says when I tell him he should check it out. He's like, yeah, I love you, lad, but I'm not watching 2 hours of your shit game. Sorry.
But the thing about it, like, I'm glad I talked myself into it, because I brought myself around to, wait a second, I have no problem sitting down and watching a movie that's 2 hours long. So if I just put myself in that mindset of like, well, someone I trust is saying that I would really enjoy this, but just think of it like a movie, and then plan my own movie night when, Christina's gone and I'm home alone or whatever, and do it. And I watched it and I was like, oh my gosh, I love this. And that was kind of my journey. Like, eventually I got into playing the game, and then eventually I got into STing the game. And when I found your channel, when I found TPI's YouTube channel and I started watching your games, I remember as a complete newbie, like, shouting at you, like, you made a mistake, like this, it was just like, how can you do that, and now being in a similar position, just being a storyteller consistently every single week, and now putting out content, it's funny because, like, I really have to check my ego, because I make mistakes. I mean, we're all human, everybody makes mistakes, and as far as storytellers go, I'm significantly younger than you at it, but I put that out there, like, just because I make a mistake, it's not like, oh, well, I shouldn't put this video out. No, actually, I do it because people will call it out, and people can learn from my mistakes. So, and that's just like an aspect of me growing up. Something someone pointed out to me when I was a teenager was like, you know something, kid, I'll never forget this. They were like, most adults can't learn from their own mistakes. You have this really unique ability to learn from other people's mistakes. I still have to learn from my own as well, but that conversation really kind of dictated how I handle putting out product and being wrong and being open and vulnerable about it to show everybody, like, I never claimed I'm perfect. And if I do make mistakes, I think it's a more positive thing to shine a light on a mistake that I made and then correct it in the future so that other people who want to storytell or want to play the game understand the mechanic the way it's supposed to work, or see that mistake and avoid, they can sidestep that landmine in the event that they have the same kind of setup. So it's I really respect, like, because of that, that moment in time that I first had where I was like yelling at you at the screen, that reminded me of kind of where I came from, and I really respect that, like, you putting that out there, because I feel like, for obvious reasons, you're held to a significantly higher standard, and I just want to applaud you for, just being human and being open and being able to take all that criticism, because, I mean, if you're going to put yourself out there, you're going to generate haters. Doesn't matter how positive you are.
YouTube comments are not a wholesome place. But thank you. I appreciate that. And I wholeheartedly agree, actually. Yeah, I think those of us that are being other enthusiasts' gateway into the hobby, it's so important for us to highlight the mistakes that we make and, like, own up to them. And also to, like, highlight other less than perfect situations. So, obviously I've run streams before where a player's got upset and they've got a little irate and they've had a bit of a meltdown, and and these are things that are going to happen in your games. Everyone who runs or plays this game a significant number of times is going to have a situation where a player gets a little too passionate and gets a little upset, or they're going to have some, like, toxic douchebag that's ruining the fun for everyone, or they're going to have somebody who's cheating. Like, these are all things that have happened on stream and on YouTube videos. And as soon as they happen, I'm almost kind of, I don't want to say glad that they've happened, but I seize the opportunity to deal with it, because I know, and I imagine you know as well, that the things that we do when we're running games online, that other people are going to see that as the standard way to do things. And we want to have a positive community. So if we go up to that person and be like, "Why are you throwing a tantrum, you prick?" Like, it's not gonna. We're just gonna make the community significantly worse. So it's important, I think, that for all of us to just try and be as positive as possible and try and be as good of a role model as possible, because regardless of whether you're running a game on a stream in front of hundreds of people or just running the game for like 8 or 9 of your friends, if you're running the game, however big that audience is, they're all looking to you to set the tone and to tell them what attitude to have and how to treat one another. And if you're exuding an aura of positivity and friendliness and inclusivity, that's what they're going to give back to you and to them.
Yep, spot on. And I'll echo that by saying, for those of you folks who are aware of energy, you attract what you are, right? And what you focus on expands. So it's real easy to quote my favorite thing that you've said so far in this chat: toxic douchebags. I mean, if you focus on that, then you're just going to empower that particular said toxic douchebag and attract more of them. And I think bigger than that is one of the things that I really set out to do to set the tone when I decided, like, Jack approached me with this idea, and I remember at first I said no, and then I approached it with this, like, okay, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to take, like, the business acumen that I have and focus on community building, like, of a specific type. And it's really important to understand, like, I love the fact that there are so many communities out there, because I believe I'm a positive guy and I believe in abundance. There's plenty for everybody, like, more than enough for everybody. It's just, are you willing to put in the work to go and get it? And so there's no like we've been compared to others, even TPI's server. And anytime anybody's brought that up or asked me about it, I said, look, it's important for everybody to understand. There's no like one is right and one is wrong. There's just a style of person. Like not everyone in the world's going to get along, right? Not everybody is the same. Not everybody's extroverted. Not everybody's positive. You know, like it. Go with what resonates with you, right? So that's why I think it's so great to have so many different kinds of communities, because there are people that genuinely love to fight and argue. To them, it's a good time and they're happy. Cool for you. Like I'm not that guy, but if you want to do that, good on you. Go find people like that and have a great time.
Yeah, and that links back quite nicely to the what do you think about the politician, the mastermind, all that kind of stuff. You know, again, it's a case of there's 100 bars in this town. Like, visit the one that has the beer you like. You know, don't try and force the one that is serving things you don't like to you know. But don't force yourself to try and like it. Certainly.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely. And I think generally games like Clocktower communities, at least as I've seen it over time, they exist on kind of a spectrum, like a scale. And on this side of it, you've got mechanics, and on this side of it, you've got social.
Yeah.
And I know some Clocktower servers where it's all the way over here, and it's like they only care about mechanics. They're not at all interested in social reads, and that, you know, that's what they like, to the point where I know one community where they've literally taken the evil twin out of Sex and Violets because not enough mechanics. You've got to go with a gut reading half the time. You can't always figure it out objectively, so they're not interested. Wow. They've taken it out. They've got some other minion in there, but they love it. They think that's brilliant. They're like, we've solved Clocktower. I'm like, great, you know, if that's what you,
as long as you're having fun,
fantastic, yeah.
Yeah, that works. So I have a really unique question I've been holding. I see that Darby is here now, so I want to ask Darby's question because earlier today this question came at me. So in a scenario, I imagine this has to be on a custom script. In a scenario where the pixie target dies, let's say it's the empath, just for arguments, right? The pixie has the empath ability, right? So the empath dies, the pixie's done their job, the pixie becomes the empath or has the empath's ability. And then through Shabaloth or Professor or some other means, Amnesiac, who knows, the empath is resurrected. What is the pixie?
Okay, so I think I know the answer to this, but again, I'm just going to very quickly check the specific wording, because this is something that this is an example of one of those scenarios where you can apply this pretty much across the board. So the pixie says, if you were mad that you were this character, you gain their ability when they die. Not if they are dead, when they die. So they've died. Like, that thing happened. That toggle has been switched. It's the same thing that causes something of an issue with the leech. I don't know if you're familiar with the immortal leech problem. So the thing you know. So basically,
feel free to share.
Yeah. So the leech's ability specifies that they pick a host, and you die if and only if they die. Okay. So if you've got a courtier that makes the leech drunk, and then their host dies, well, the leech was drunk when their host died. So when they become sober again, they are now immortal because their host can never die because they're already dead.
Wow.
So there you go. Yeah. That's the problem. That's something that we may well have to fix in when the leech is released with its actual home script. And there are quite a few experimental characters. That's why they're called experimental. They're going to get reworded before they're re-released. I had an interesting a game. I don't know if it's been released or will be released. I'm not really sure. It may have, but I wasn't aware of a particular jinx. And I will officially start by saying what I think doesn't matter, because rules are rules and these guys make the game. But it was, I know it was Mastermind. I think it was Leech Mastermind.
And someone asked during the game in chat, kind of like, well, wait, what's the point of the mastermind? And because, I mean, if they execute the leech host and the leech dies, everyone will know it's a leech game, and they'll just double tap the leech and then game over, right? And I'm like, mechanically, yes. So I don't quite understand why leech and mastermind would be on a script, because that's how the mechanic would work. Then I discovered after the game the jinx, where just the host would, in a mastermind game, just the host dies, the demon doesn't actually die, and the next day is a mastermind day, and they've got to kill the leech or somebody evil or whatever. Which, again, like, I was like, okay, I get it, but I feel like, to me, it just feels like you're breaking character mechanics for another character's functionality. Whereas it might be one of those situations, kind of like, I'll use Recluse as an example, right? Could the Recluse potentially register as a Scarlet Woman and catch a Star Pass and become the good demon? Yes, but don't, right? Like, don't ever do that, right? So I kind of feel like that's one of those mechanics. This is just me personally talking. Like, you should never have a Mastermind and a Leech because of the mechanics of how those two work. So creating a Jinx that actually breaks the Leech character, I don't know, it just didn't really feel right to me. But it is what it is. I mean, officially, that's the Jinx in the event that those two are on the same script.
The thing about Jinxes is about 90% of them exists to plaster over a problem. And if your script has Jinxes on it, unless it's one of those very few Jinxes where it's not really a Jinx, it's more a, hey, storyteller, in case you were wondering, this is how these two characters interact. If it's one of those Jinxes where it's very clearly trying to deal with an inherent problem between those two characters, your script would probably be better if one of those characters wasn't on it. And if someone builds a script and they show it to me and it's got like 8 or 9 Jinxes, and they say, hey, will you look this over and tell me what you think? The first point I'll make is, if you've got 8 or 9 Jinxes, then you probably just need to rethink having some of these characters in there, because Jinxes are indicative of a script that could be put together better, really. And yeah, I would never create a script that has a mastermind and a leech on it, because even though I can, it is at the very bottom of the league table of like fun minions for a leech or fun demons for a mastermind, right?
Yeah.
It's like, you really are, like, that Jinx exists because we feel that it's our job to try our very best to make every character work with every other character. And we've almost achieved that. And the mastermind Jinx is like the scraping the barrel of how we can say, hey, do you know what? Technically, these two things work together. If you really want to put these on a script together, you can. But secretly, please don't, because it's not good.
Yeah, so to echo that, I really don't like any script that has a Jinx. To be fair, I've had a lot of consistent requests from one outlet in ECG to run a script called 37 Jinxes. And just for the lulls, at some point in time, if you're watching, you know who you are, I'm going to do it. I'll probably make mistakes, but we're going to do it just because. Why not? It sounds like it might be hilarious. So really quickly, I want to inform chat of something. So chat wants to know if Ben has been getting any of the hydrate messages. No, I don't think he has. And because I'm not watching live chat, I'm trying to scroll through and make sure I catch all or as many of your questions to ask Ben as possible. I'm not noticing as they come in real time. So when you see me pick this up, it's because I'm scrolling across one of your hydrate messages. Now, there is a question. I don't know who it's for. So I'm gonna pose the question to both of us, and I'm 100% positive that we will have the opposite response. So Ben, okay. You go first. Whiskey or rum?
Oh God, do you know what? I don't think we will have the opposite response, because I'm sorry, I've given many non-answers this evening. Here's another one. I'll tell you what I like. I like variety. I generally won't drink the same thing twice. I love rum. I really, really love rum. If I'm like out, getting drunk, if I'm on a session and I've had a few beers and, I'm getting a little full, I'll often switch to rum. I really like a rum and coke. I also like a Jack and Coke. I also like a gin and tonic. I like a vodka and lemonade. I like a Bailey's in coffee.
Ben.
I'll just mix it up. So sorry, I don't have a good answer.
I've got an answer. It's easy for me. Rum. Done. If and when you do come to the U.S. and you get in my neck of the woods, I 1000% believe that in a former life I was a bartender. And if you like variety, then goddamn it, we're gonna have some amazing nights.
I'm looking forward to it. Sold.
So this feels like we're going back in time a bit. So I'm gonna try and get through some of these quickly. I'll try to make them kind of quick fire, but don't want to rush you. So Zen of Kermit is asking, what is your favorite horror movie?
The Thing.
The Thing.
It's yeah. I'm actually a really big John Carpenter fan. I love almost everything that he's made, but The Thing for me was just like the pinnacle of practical effects. And also I remember seeing The Thing on late night TV when I was a little kid, like tucked up in my bed, secretly got the TV on. Parents don't know. I'm watching this terrifying horror movie that I thought was fascinating because it's a horror movie where anybody can be the Thing. The Thing is this like alien that can mimic the physical and sort of mannerisms of any person in this isolated Antarctic research base. And so everyone's paranoid that everyone else could be the Thing. And that, I think in that moment, planted the seed of social deduction in my mind that kind of set me on the path to being such a big fan of Blood on the Clocktower, because The Thing really is just, werewolf basically with fancy paint on it. But yeah, I'm a big fan of The Thing. And I was actually supposed to go on Monday to see The Thing at a cinema in London with the No Rolls Barred crew for John Gracie's birthday. But I had to cancel when I found out that it was going to cost me £80 to get there and back on the train. To give that some context, it's about £6 or £7 for a cinema ticket. So
wow,
it would have cost me a hell of a lot of money to get there and back. So I had to apologise to John.
Oh, bummer.
But yeah, I love that film.
Well, John, I hope you make your way across this interview someday and hear Ben's genuine apology.
I am. Honestly,
and if you
John,
do, reach out because we really want to collab with you guys. I've got some great ideas. So I'm getting through some beer ideas to go touch back on that. So for names, I like Shabaloff, as in you've had too much to drink. It's time to Shabaloff. Suds on the Clocktower. The Storyteller. Let's see. Hard Claim Cider.
Oh, that's nice. I like that. Yeah.
Or Outsider.
Wow, that's really good, actually.
Yeah, these are some great ones. You're also being asked, what if you were going to have a Blood on the Clocktower beer or a Ben Burns beer, what would the key ingredient be?
Malt, hops, yeast, sugar. The key ingredient, that's an interesting one. I suppose, is that what do I want it to taste like? Or what kind of mouthfeel do I want?
Yeah, I think about things like, okay, so you've got the different types of beers, right? Like you've got lager, pilsner, Hefeweizen, you've got, you know what I mean, like, so the pale ales, IPA, you've got that genre, and then you've got chocolates, and you've got fruity beer, certain Hefeweizens have an additional note, you've got vanilla caramel type things like that. So for you, if you were going to create something I think this would be the most amazing beer ever, what would your key ingredient be?
Oh yeah, well I think I really like citrusy, light hoppy citrusy ales. So anything that's got a kind of citrusy lime or lemon kind of vibe to it, that's preferably really hoppy and really light. I really do love pale ales. I really also quite like stouts and dark ales, but they don't agree with me quite as much. So, and I'm getting towards that age now where I can't just pour anything down my throat. 10 years ago, you can get smashed, drink anything, wake up the next morning at 7 a.m. and go to work. But that's It's not the world I live in anymore, unfortunately.
All right, so they want to open up the movie question a little bit broader. What is your favorite movie?
The Thing. I'm sorry. That one should have been obvious, right? As a horror fan, The Thing is my, as that being my favorite genre. I'm a really big fan of that particular film. I also really like, to give some other answers that aren't just The Thing, I'm a big fan of The Midnight Express. Have you ever seen that film?
Is that the one with, am I thinking Robert De Niro and...
It's 1978. It's got quite a lot of famous people in it. It's got Brad Davis, Irene Miracle, Bo Hopkins, Randy Quaid, John Hurt. It's basically it's a real life story about a guy who got caught trying to smuggle drugs out of Turkey, an American. He got thrown in a Turkish prison for years and years, and eventually planned and made his escape. And it's just it's just a really good, really interesting film. Sorry, I'm probably not selling it very well here, but yeah, I've always liked that.
No, it works. So Spokane Cisco is asking, have you run into any language idiosyncrasies / cultural differences in foreign players joining the game? And if so, how have you been able to work through those? Heavy.
So, I mean, we're quite fortunate in the English-speaking world that everyone speaks English. So I guess we have you guys to thank for that, right? We're exporting our language around the world. Thanks for that. I don't
know. You did a pretty good job in the colonization days.
Yeah, I know, right?
Sorry.
I honestly don't think I have really. I had this really hilarious experience way back in the early days, like near the beginning of UK lockdown. When we very first started streaming on the channel, this probably maybe only a few months into us streaming, we did this like special mega stream where we got groups from all over the world who were playing online using the app, and we invited them onto the channel to come play a game with us. So we had like a Brazilian group that played, and then we ran a game for an Indian group, and then we ran a game for a group who were playing in the Philippines. And we finally, near the end of it, we had like a French-speaking one, where it was a bunch of French Canadians and a bunch of French people. They were obviously playing in English, but they would normally play in French together, but they were speaking English for the benefit of me and for our audience. And I remember this French guy was like, I think he's, what is the word in English? Le Baron? And I'm like, yeah, the Baron. You know. The only reason we know that word is because you invaded us a millennium ago. Now we call it the Baron.
I was half expecting you. My mind went to this old skit where someone was just playing French accent, and they were like, "How you say douchebag?"
Oh man, I really do like that word. Like, but I generally don't use Americanisms, but I think there's just something really like, it has gravitas, doesn't it? That
it
word.
Does.
Douchebag. It's just so, you know.
It's that hard D. It's such a douchebag. It is fun, and I love coining the phrase on our server. We do not tolerate general douchebaggery. Zen of Kermit is also asking, will TPI make a guide to creating custom / homebrew scripts?
That's an interesting one, because that is one of those ideas that we've bounced around a million times, but because we're an indie company, it's always been on the back burner and probably will remain on it for quite some time, because I think it's somewhat subjective, isn't it, really, building custom scripts? I mean, you and I can right now do a tutorial right now. We've made a fair few scripts. I could be like, okay, it needs to have some outsider manipulation on it. You should have some drunkenness and poisoning. There should be a way for any special demons to bluff as being special characters. So, for example, if you've got a leech, make sure you put a fool or something like that on there. Make sure you've got 13 townsfolk, because if you're running a big game, blah, 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 bam, there you go. There's a script building guide. It's that simple to those of us that build a lot of scripts. But also, it's not that simple, is it? Because what I've just described is soulless. It's a bunch of check boxes that you need to check, basically. That's not what makes a good script. What makes a good script is knowing the people who are going to play it, how they're going to play those characters. Oh, I'll put this thing on here because that guy that I meet with every week to play Clocktower, I know that he'll love bluffing as that if he's evil. I'll put these on here because I know these guys all love characters that cause death in the night. So there's like this layer of, make sure you do all these things so the script isn't literally broken. But then much fatter layer beneath it that is kind of intangible and hard to make a tutorial on. So I think for that reason and the fact that there's not many of us, it's probably not going to happen anytime soon. But to be honest with you, I see that kind of content as being something that someone in the community will naturally step up and do it. At some point, there will be a YouTube video that everyone agrees is a really good, tutorial on making scripts. And when some newbie says, hey, I want to make a script, but I don't know how to do it, has anyone got any resources? That will become the go-to thing, I think.
Yeah. I was going to say, I don't know that there's necessarily a specific guide. Based on what I've seen, and what we've actually done at ECG, in fact, recently we had a script building contest for Halloween, and one of our members, Save and I, won the contest, and we played 2 games. We called it Halloween Hijinks. But what I saw throughout that contest, and then afterwards, when it kind of inspired people to start script writing, script building. And I've noticed, intermittently, there will be days, or a particular time period where someone will solicit, be like, hey, I thought of this script, what do you think? And what's really wonderful to see is just, brutally honest, but, positive feedback. I don't think this would work because of this. I would remove this because if this happens, and there's a lot of really great resources, right? So people that have a lot of experience that spend a lot of time, probably more time than me, grinding over the characters and the mechanics and exactly how everything works and interacts. And I mean, some of the responses I've thought was amazing. Things I would never think of. I was like, wow, that's a really good point. And obviously, I think another way to vet whether or not you've built a good custom script is TPI's World Cup, right?
Yeah. It's been going on for a lot longer than I predicted it would, to be honest. I think if we run it again, we'll probably have less scripts in it, maybe 32 instead of 64. But that's been a really cool experience, because up until that point, all of our script contests were just send us a script and we'll pick the best one. And then some of the members of our stream team were like, hey, listen, if you're going to do a big grandiose thing like this, we need to highlight the fact that building scripts is about playtesting first and foremost. It's not about just picking 22 characters that are cool. It's about building something and then playtesting it and then iterating on it and then playtesting it more and then iterating on it again. I'm really happy that we've been able to do that, and that we've been able to, and that it's been successful, because I was kind of afraid that it would be a bit crap because it was the same scripts being played over and over again. But actually, it's been the opposite. It really has felt like a coach that's changed up the roster in between rounds and whatnot.
I'm going to pause for a moment and say thank you, Serendipity, for the sub.
Oh, thanks, Serendipity. You're a star.
With all this script talk, somebody wants me to mention Kaboom. I don't think we need to mention Kaboom. I would love to.
That's like your guy's signature hamburger or something, isn't it? Kaboom.
It really
That's
is.
The thing that people talk about. Hey, come and check this server out. They've got this script called Kaboom.
Well, I believe the brief exposure that you had to it last time we played, there was an alchemist boom dandy who discovered a virgin.
Oh, God.
That was hilarious. Most recently game of Kaboom that we played, which will probably make it out on YouTube eventually, the I think it was the Al Hadikia bluffed cult leader for the first time ever, right away. First cult leader call, Raspberry Pi. Everybody voted for it, and there was no cult formed. Proving that they weren't the cult leader. They were just having fun, and they killed him for it and won the game.
Oh my god.
But that's very typical of like Kaboom. It's a lot of fun. It's meant to just be a big giant joke. You know, the requirement is every roll in it has got to either kill someone or win the game instantly. So it's just meant to be really quick and have a lot of fun and make people laugh, which we always do. And yeah, there's plenty of it out there, and it's getting some pretty good traction. I want to start zipping through this. Oh, I'm caught up. I don't have any more questions for you, Ben. I guess, is there anything that you want to, yes, hello, Lay. Is there anything that you want to cover, like anything coming up? Actually, I'll say this really quickly. I'll ask it in a form of a question, actually. Tomorrow, when we play one game with Carly, and then however much you feel like playing, is it like, because there's a World Cup going on, is it okay to play scripts that are in the World Cup, or does that feel like it might be a little biased?
Yeah, that's an interesting one actually, because I mean, obviously, you can play whatever scripts you want. It's not up to, you know, I'm not the adjudicator of what scripts may or may not be played. I think if I'm running them, it might be considered a little unfair, because then what I'm essentially doing is giving exposure to one script over others that are still in it. However, I'd be happy to run scripts that are no longer in the World Cup, that we've just announced what have made it through from the round of 32. So anything that's been knocked out, I'd be happy to run. Why, have you got like a community member who's in the World Cup still? And
well, we do, but more importantly, I've got Carly has requested, like, I would like to play this script because it's a well-known script, and I just happen to know that it is currently still in the World Cup.
Interesting.
In addition to that, we do have a community member, Milk, who has a script that is also still in the World Cup. So my initial response to this, and what I had told them was, it's probably not really prudent, just because like people could perceive, you know, favoritism that doesn't exist or whatever. So let's stay away from it. But like I said, having the queen of Clocktower show up and say like, oh, I would love to play the script, like I don't know how to say no to that. You know, like, I want to make sure that Carly has the most positive experience the first time she plays with us as possible, because obviously for her and the players' benefit and the viewers' benefit, like I would like to do that as much as possible. So yeah, tomorrow, I mean, I'm gonna have to iron this out tonight so that we're not just like, oh, what do we do tomorrow? But yeah, for those of you who are here now and don't know, here on this channel we play Clocktower every Saturday at 10 a.m. Eastern and every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Tomorrow Ben is going to be with us, and at least for the first game, Carly is going to be with us as well. This is the reason that I'm asking these questions. So if you guys are free, obviously come join, chat with us, interview, or influence the game. We'd love to have you. It's always a blast. But more importantly, Ben, is there anything personally or TPI related that you want to bring up, shout out, shine a light on, bring attention to before we go?
Yes. Yeah. So first of all, the World Cup resumes. It's going to resume on Thursday, the 17th of this month on the official channel. So we're going to be kicking that back off. And I think we're probably going to find that it will be over quite quickly, because we're now down to just 16 scripts. And obviously every round takes significantly less time to go. So we are building up to an exciting end of the World Cup. And it has literally taken us an entire year. We started planning it in January.
Wow.
Yeah, I know, right? It's not, World Cups don't last that long in other sports. So yeah, that's why we're the best sport, right? Because it lasts all year. The next week, I'll be part of a very special stream on the official channel at 3 p.m. GMT, which I believe is 10 a.m. Eastern. and we're going to be announcing something really cool on that. So swing by, or don't, because this channel streams at 10 a.m. So stay here.
Well, so I think what we're going to do, so this is an unofficial announcement for those of you here with us now and anybody who watches this back. We're considering a shift in time, simply because there's going to be a TPI mega stream going on next Saturday, like Ben just mentioned, and it's starting at 10 a.m., which is when we always stream at 10 a.m., but I have entirely too much respect for A, Ben, and B, the No Rules Bard folks who are going to be playing in that slot. So if I were any of you, I would probably want to be watching that as much as I want you to be watching us and participating here. I definitely want to support that. So there's potential that we actually start early with Ben and get a game in sort of like a pre-mega stream. So stay tuned for that. And by the way, thank you, Ben, for that suggestion. Is there anything else? Actually, I will request, please shout out your channel name, your socials, all that stuff, so that if anybody doesn't know, that they can go and follow and support you and TPI.
You can catch us at twitch.tv/the Pandemonium Institute, or check out the Blood on the Clocktower channel on YouTube. Yeah, that's where we do things. But honestly, I'd rather you stay and show your love to this channel, because, you know, from a purely cynical perspective, every step that East Coast Gamers takes to becoming, a little bit bigger than it was yesterday makes my life a little bit easier, because ultimately, when other channels succeed, we'll succeed, basically. As I like to put it, rising tide, rises all boats, right? The game gets a little bit better every time it gets a little bit more exposed, because there are more people in the community who are interested, a more diverse cast of players, new friends to make, new experiences to have. So yeah, my wholehearted advice is that you stay here and watch all of East Coast Gamers content, and when you finish, watch it all again and turn your ad blocker off.
Well, thanks for that. I think right now you probably don't need an ad blocker, because we haven't made it to the 1,000 subs we need to monetize on YouTube yet. But hopefully by the time people start watching this video, hey, maybe we'll be there. So last question right before we head out, that has been asked. I'm kind of putting you on the spot, but chat asked for it, which was, would we, you and I, do another like a script building session from scratch together like this in the future? Sure.
Yeah, I'm down for that.
Awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, obviously. What we should do is we should build the scripts on stream, and then we should run it immediately afterwards.
I like that even better.
Fun, right?
Thanks, Jade. Look what happened. Your idea just grew legs and matured. It evolved in an instant. And they're saying that it must include Boom Dandy. All right, so before we continue dragging on, Ben, it's always a pleasure to talk to you online, offline, when we play. Love hanging out with you. I know everybody here in chat enjoyed. Thank you guys so much for showing up and asking all your questions. I hope that we answered everything. Ben, so much appreciation and love for you just taking the time and doing this. I hope you had a good time, and I hope that we can do this again.
Man, really, I appreciate you having me on. I appreciate you listening to me ramble inanely while I sip scotch.
I think that might be the name of our next stream. Steve and Ben ramble inanely while they sip rum and scotch. I think it's a winner. All right. Once again, thanks, Ben. Thank all you guys. If you're catching this later, thank you so much for watching. We really appreciate the support in just you watching. And obviously, if you enjoy the content and you're catching this on YouTube later, please consider giving us a like and thumbs up and subscribing to the channel. We're always looking to put out as much engaging content as we can for you guys to enjoy. So if you have any suggestions, please hit up the comment section. Until next time, Ben, thanks again, and we will talk to you all later. See you, everybody.